Hello, everybody. Welcome to our second event of open discussions. The topics that we want to discuss tonight. So if everybody can quickly put their votes in, we've got inner conflict there, blame doesn't set us free is the other topic, and then we are not free, so we don't exercise our freedom of choice.
Tonight, I'd like to talk about a different story that I also encountered in my conventional working career. Let's say I joined a new company or a new department. I would, of course, not know what's going on. And because I'm inquisitive, I would go and ask Joe, Peter, Mary, Paul, help, what about this? How does this work? How does that work? And I consistently found that people were not willing to answer and help me. So it was either because they didn't know what the answer was, or they were just reluctant to help me. I didn't know the reason, and I also didn't wait to figure out what it was. But what that did was, it tapped into another skill or talent of mine, and that is problem solving. So I would then find the answer, and I remember one particular conventional job that I went to. Nobody was willing to help me. Eventually, I took all the manuals off the shelf and I worked through it. It took me, let's say, 2 or 3 weeks, and I worked through it and I worked through it. And eventually, I became the subject matter expert. And because I like helping people, those very same people would come to me and ask me questions. But the incident that I'm sharing now happened across my career wherever I worked. So that tapped into another talent that I didn't even know I had, but that was to facilitate or to tutor or to mentor, whatever you want to call it. And during the years before Peace Evolution started in this format, I was looking at the building blocks of what and how manifesting my purpose would be. And dear Lena, I also found it very, very difficult. I did this, I did that, I did so many things. And then in its simplicity, I figured out, but wait, if I just use my current skills, my current talent, and my current temperament, I don't need to do anything else. So it's like this. I recognized my purpose, and I would like to say I then took that and my skills and my talent and my temperament, and I blew life into it to support what I wanted to do. And the difficulty started melting away. But wait, to convert that into money so that I could pay the bills while I'm liking what I do, that was not very, very easy. So here at Peace Evolution, and as we formulated it in the beginning when Linda and I carved out how this would work, how that would work, the end result is here at Peace Evolution, we have two, let's call it two directions. The one direction is people join us, and all they need to do is offer their skills and their temperament and their talents and what they like doing, in other words, what their purpose would be. And if they don't know that, here we could help with what that is. And then that would be a way of then manifesting their purpose. The other side of it is, but everybody can't join Peace Evolution. Others would just want to come here to uncover and recognize their purpose, and then also manifest that while making a living, making money to pay the bills. So we've got those two, and here we offer with both those directions the how, subject to one thing: the person, of course, as we mentioned the previous time, needs brutal honesty and courage. And without those two, we get lost in the weeds. It's very, very difficult for me to own up something that I have been protecting for 20, 30 years. Now, once I'm comfortable, and as Linda said, that it is a safe place to be true to yourself, that true to yourself means that you are willing to untap that which you have hidden for so many years, to now get past that, to see what lies behind it, and then it becomes simple. But, of course, converting that into making a living, that is not the easiest part.
Yes, thank you for that. I think it's exactly like you say. It's trying to identify what those skills and talents might be. The honesty and the courage, honesty and courage in being willing to identify those skills and talents. Because personally, for me, I've never been willing to really identify and own that I do have skills.
Yeah, the trust is also important. Yeah, thank you, Dialina. I found with myself, I didn't in the beginning quite know which way to go, how to trust my instincts. Just to give you an idea, just a small idea, I was skilled in a certain role for many years. Then I re-skilled into another role. And then one day I decided, but I needed to again make money to pay the bills. But I wasn't willing to go to any one of those two, which I was proficient with, highly proficient, and they are sought after roles in the industry, even today. So I said, but if I take all of that, what am I also proficient with? And I re-skilled into that role. But now that, of course, takes trust that I have that, but I don't want to do it anymore. I have that, I don't want to do it anymore. But this really is interesting. And funnily enough, it was probably 2, 3, 4 weeks, let's call it 2 months later, I got a job in this new role that I skilled, and it was like all my other skills and talents and temperament came together. But of course, I needed to trust that if it didn't, and accept that if it didn't work out, I would have to fall back on the other. So I make many of my decisions like that. I say, well, Emmanuel, if you've got the guts, go for this. But if it doesn't work out, are you prepared to go to the previous one? Okay, let's go into the topics. You've paved the way for that. Okay, so let's look at inner conflict. And my process of figuring out how to unravel the internal conflict or the inner conflict was, first of all, to recognize what I didn't want. So if we look at these three roles that I was just talking about, I knew I had this, but I didn't want any more of it. I knew I had this, but I didn't want, and I reskilled, and the whole thing worked out. Now, we need to figure out what is the origin of the inner conflict. And of course, please, I'm probably going to say this many times with the brutal honesty and the courage and trusting, and slowly from having very little confidence, we grow confidence. And in the inner conflict, what was the driver behind the inner conflict? So there was a reason why there was conflict. I wanted to do this, but I'm just going to say this metaphorically. Something on my shoulder said to me, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do that. No, 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 please don't do that. Or I didn't want to do this, and there would be something to say on my shoulder, you better do that, you better do that, otherwise this or that or the other thing. So it's of course important to be able to look at that movie that is playing. So remember I was saying previously that I could slow my mind down, and I could then watch me living my life and also witness what was going on. And in that, to slowly start getting the courage to say, wait, this doesn't serve me. This on my shoulder doesn't serve me. That particular thing that I want to do or not want to do, also I know from past experience doesn't serve me. I want to give an example. I'd like to give an example. Linde, I would take the very same topic in a discussion with you and answer you very differently to how it was with Pierre, or how it was with Natasha, or Dialine, how it was with you, or Claire, how it was with you. So every time I gave an answer about something, I would say it, who wants to guess? Not like that. So what was the reason behind that, do you think? That I would say it in a way, depending on who I was speaking to. And the truth of the story was different every time.
Because it's different for everyone. So everyone knows what's right for them.
Okay, you lukewarm. You lukewarm. But remember, it was about me, not about them. So there were two things at play. Of course, I would like Pierre to have accepted, and because I understood him a little bit, I would frame the answer in a way that he would accept it. Not what I really wanted to say. Natasha, so I would say to you the very same thing that Pierre and I were speaking about, and I would frame it with you in a way that I knew you would like and you would accept that answer from me. So do you think my answer had anything to do with reality? So in that, what was I looking for? Yes, Pierre?
Maybe to relate to the person.
Remember, it wasn't about the person, it was about me.
Oh, okay.
Just ask your question again, Emmanuel.
Okay, what was behind that? If the question was ABC, Linde, I would answer it in a way to you and in a different way to Natasha, and with each of us here a different way. And remember, I didn't know consciously that I was doing that, but in me slowing my mind down and watching it, I saw, oh, that was my behavior. And then I had to stand back and have the courage and the honesty to pinpoint, why was I doing that?
Mm. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Okay,
So
so
it's like
tell,
our behavior is different to when we at work versus when we are with friends versus when we're in a social situation or wherever.
okay, but what, for Emmanuel, what was it that caused that drove that behavior?
I'll try. Could it not be
my
self-acceptance? Sorry, Linde.
Self-acceptance or what acceptance?
acceptance from others.
Okay, Natasha, is that what you meant or meant to say but use different words?
Yeah, so maybe not self-acceptance, self-worth.
Well, it's more or less the same thing.
Yeah. Mm.
So the reason why I was answering it like that was I wanted you to accept whatever I said. That would mean that I was okay.
Mm.
Okay. So what has that got to do with inner conflict? It has got this to do with inner conflict. Am I comfortable enough with myself that I could say whatever I needed to say, whether you accepted it or not, whether you agreed with me or not, whether you accepted me or not? I just wanted to say what was in my thoughts, in my heart, in my whatever. Now, if I turn that around, what did Emmanuel lack in the story that he's sharing now? What did I lack? At the heart of it,
You lacked inner peace.
okay, that's a consequence of something else. What did I lack?
I would say confidence.
Okay, that's also a consequence of what I lacked.
That's self-acceptance. Yes.
Okay, we're getting close, but that's also a consequence of why I behaved that way. What was at the heart of it?
Social acceptance. Being
Okay, that's also a consequence. So I wanted acceptance, but why did I want that? And what was the cause behind that? So remember what we are talking about now is those are all symptoms, and the outcome of the symptom, what is the root cause? What was lacking in Emmanuel to have behaved like that?
So is the root cause not that you feel that you're not good enough?
Remember, with all of this work, we need to pinpoint the exact point.
Maybe proving to yourself that you are worthy.
Also before. Shall I tell?
Yes, please.
Okay, I'm going to use different words than you attempt to tell me what am I talking about. when my thinking and my saying and my doing is equal or congruent, what do I then have? My thinking
That
and saying and my doing, if that is equal, in line, aligned, any of those words, what have I then got?
I would say inner peace.
you-
If it's aligned, it's the same.
That also comes after.
what you have is your true self.
Okay, those are all before, should I say?
Yeah.
Okay,
Please.
if my behavior is aligned, so there's nothing on this shoulder influencing me, nothing on this shoulder, I'm just me, no matter what the circumstances, I am then living my integrity.
Yeah.
If any of those three are non-aligned, I am not living my integrity. It's not possible. So, of course, I saw that and my eyes popped out. Now, remember, I didn't see it in my mind's eye. I recognized that and my eyes popped out. And then, of course, I needed to shift and find the space in me that was broken and which owned my integrity, because I certainly didn't have it at that time. So what I'm attempting to say here is those are things that influences our inner conflict. Linde, I would love to say something with you, but I don't. Or there's something that I'd love not to say to you in a discussion or whatever, but I don't. Or I do. And of course, can you then sense how much turmoil is going on inside of me?
Mm.
Is that interesting?
So pretty much like second guessing yourself if you're going to do or say the right thing or not.
Yes, Pia, I would like to just quickly jump on one of the words that you said. And this is crucially important. This whole thing that we say this is wrong or this is right has got an inherent flaw in it. What is that inherent flaw? Yes, I'm
There
now
is
on
no
the
right
roll.
or wrong.
Okay, there is no right or wrong. Because if there was a right or a wrong, there would be judgment. I'm going to use a very simplistic example now. And I like to exaggerate to bring a point across. Does the sun or Table Mountain or a cob of corn or a tree behave differently based on who's walking on the mountain, who's eating the cob of corn, who's under the tree, and in how the sun is the center of whatever it's the center of? Does it say, am I doing the right thing? Does it say, am I doing the wrong thing? It just does. So the moment we use the words, this is wrong or this is right, we have to inspect what was just being said now. Because who decides?
Come back to inner conflict.
Okay.
And so you mentioned it's like, it's sort of two voices speaking. The one is saying, maybe, should I say this, shouldn't I? The other one is saying something else. And and this is what's creating the turmoil. How do you then how do you become aware of that? Are you saying you've got to have something that observes that first and recognize that first to see it at play? Are you saying that we don't recognize that, and that's why we can't see where the inner conflict comes from?
Linda, you're asking a majorly interesting question. Majorly.
When there's two different voices and the inner conflict comes in and you end up not saying what you want to say, or you don't do what you want to do. And it takes courage, like you said, to be comfortable enough to think, do, and say things that are due in line with your integrity. But I think my question was in the sense of what needs to happen for you to transition to that place of integrity and to become aware that that is actually what's happening.
What of course happens is that I needed to Emmanuel. So what Emmanuel's contribution is to peace evolution, and what Emmanuel's contribution is to enable every person. So my vision is that every person lives their vision. It seems like my talents and temperament and skills unfolded in a certain way where at some point I could take charge of my mind. So our minds and our brains work very, very quickly. And part of what I found is I was able to slow it down. As I was saying, I would go to the movies back in the day when we still went to the movies, and I would watch people watching the movie while I was watching the movie and seeing their behavior, and I would also look inside me at what my behavior was. So as I said now, there were many things at play. Me watching the people, me watching what I am responding to based on the movie. So I was able to slow down to catch the fact that depending on who I was speaking to, I would frame my answer, as I was saying, in a way to be accepted by whoever I was speaking to. Not to answer correctly what I was being asked, but to be accepted by them. Okay, so that was the principle behind it. And of course, my particular talent is to be able to catch moments. Now, let us say that Mary Peter Paul says to me, Emmanuel, also assist me to, and I'm still answering your question in a roundabout way, to get me to also be able to do that. I would then work with you, of course, first of all, so that you or that those people to be comfortable with themselves. I would set the scene in a way that they would be comfortable to be true to themselves. I would set it in a way that they wouldn't need to also do what I did. I would then also help them untap their honesty and untap their courage. So part of my talents and skill set and temperament is to set that scene So anybody who would like to be able to do that as well could do that. But you don't need me if you are willing to do what I did obsessively from the age 23 to figure out what makes me tick. You're all welcome to do that. However, it seems like one of the things that I really like doing is doing the difficult, hard lifting and figuring out things for myself to then share and facilitate other people to make it easier for them. So the idea is nobody has to walk the N number of decades to figure it out. You could, nothing stops you to figure it out for yourself, to figure out why are you behaving the way that you are behaving. So that's not something that you need a manual for, but you make use of a manual, and I could assist with that. So that is just setting the scene of your question. So that would mean then you need to look at your behavior. Anybody who wants to see why they behave in whatever circumstances the way they behave, has the ability to see for themselves. I have not yet facilitated, and I'm saying that in a loose way, anybody who's not able to do it. Because I help set that scene for the person to be comfortable within themselves to spill their guts, so to speak. And having walked that path myself, I also know how difficult it is to let go and to share what you've been locking, that you've been, that you've kept a secret in your life that you don't want to open up. Did I sort of answer your question, or would you like more?
So I think what you're saying is that it's about observing yourself and looking at your own behavior. And that takes a lot of honesty and courage.
Brutal
Because-
honesty.
Brutal honesty, because we're probably not going to like what we see. Or we're going to realize, okay, well, we are doing things that we're not being true to ourselves. Like you said, we say things that we don't actually mean, or yeses or no, or no's or yes. So yeah.
Yeah. Linde, I can share with you that in my experience, we fight it tooth and nail not to come out and spill our guts to ourselves. And that's where I found in my conventional job that my strength was always around how to get people to be comfortable enough in themselves that they don't have the need to hide anything, and we could then look deeper and solve the particular technical problem, whatever that might be.
So, Emmanuel, would you say that inner conflict, is that not also based on certain perceptions and beliefs that we carry or have?
Linde, so your point is quite pertinent, and we're unraveling a few things now with what you're asking. So first of all, okay, let me attempt to answer it like this. Why could I not have told my school teacher, I forgot to do my homework, I didn't feel like doing my homework, I played with my friends, I didn't feel like homework? Because our standards and norms says, no, you can't do that. Okay, so how we are brought up is part of it, and as I was saying in other discussions, I was this rebel without a cause, in the sense of, if you told me you can't do it, I'm definitely going to do it. Okay. At school, I was really, I thrived on not wearing my school uniform. I had a tie that looked almost like a, back in those days, we wore bell bottom. I'm talking of my high school days. So I was wearing a bell bottom trousers to school, but it looked a lot like a school pants, but it wasn't, etc., etc., etc. So, of course, being that rebel doesn't help at all. I just made everybody's life a hell, and my own as well. I could rather have used that energy to maybe have attended school and enjoyed it. Like, for instance, today, I would love to know more about geography. I didn't take that subject. Maybe I should have taken that subject. So there are many things along the way that influence, and I just used a simple example now. So what would then be the opposite or a different way of saying to a child, here you are at a school, but we are not going to tell you what to do. You figure it out for yourself. You come to, so what we've got today is an institution of teaching. What we as species evolution would still do is to have an institute of learning where the child comes along. It doesn't matter how old that student is. It could be 3 years old. It could be somebody that's 70 years old. And they would like to learn something. And we would have the skill set to guide and help them to learn that something, whatever that something is. And we don't care if they do their homework or not. They came and asked us, and we give them the guidance, and they just do it. And my thinking is that if nobody gives them pressure and nobody expects anything of them, they would most probably do that. Now, in my conventional job, because the whole thing is that we would like to earn from liking what we do to pay the bills. So the idea is that if we entrust that that person knows what they want to do, and if 7 weeks later they realize, oh, I never wanted to know about motor mechanics, but now that somebody has shown me about motor mechanics, I realize I don't want it, and I start something else. Oh, I now want to learn to whatever. So our syllabus was decided by people, and I'm just giving a small example, and that's why the child can't say exactly truthfully why they didn't do the homework. I can give you a grown-up example. Should I give a grown-up example? Two
Sure.
people in a relationship would like to take holiday. and the one person says, I'd like to go to ABC, and the other person says, I'd like to go to XYZ. Now there's a hell of a Barney, and they don't go on holiday because I want it this way and I want it this way. But the bigger picture is that they really just want to go on holiday. What does it matter where we go to? Or we could say, let's rock, paper, scissors for going to ABC or XYZ. Let's rock, paper, scissors. The next time around, we go to the other one if we still feel like it. But now let me stir that a little bit further. So now what happens is we decide we're going to XYZ. And one of the partners is suddenly in a situation where they have an emergency and they can't go. Now that's another Barney, because the one partner says to the other partner, but you never go with where we want to go. You always have last minute plans, and there's all this back and forth and back and forth. In the meantime, what could have happened is both of them could just rearrange new plans, or person A goes their way and person B attends to the emergency. But do you get how much trust I need in myself to say, okay, partner, go and do your thing and enjoy it, and I wish you well.
So in that example, Emmanuel, if we come back to beliefs and perceptions, is there a specific belief or perception that the one partner is holding because they are adamant that they need to go to a seaside holiday destination, and the other one is like, no, we have to go on a safari holiday. So that's what I'm kind of getting to is not the destination where they want to go, but is the belief that I need to maybe get my way because you should support me and my choices, whatever the case may be. So do you see where I'm going with this? Or
Yes, and you have answered the question. So the dynamic
Okay.
at play is, you see, if I don't get my way, it again emphasizes to me that I'm not worthy. It's very simple. Then there's the other side as well. There's another dynamic at play as well, is some people are controlling and manipulative, but let us just use the controlling one. But why do I need to control something? So this is crucial, and let me elaborate on this controlling behavior. And we haven't really touched in depth about why we have all this behavior. We haven't gone. So I was saying now some of it is subsequent, consequent to the moment, and some of it is prior to the moment. We haven't played in this space yet. We've only played in this space. We have to at some point come and play in this space as well. What happens before that we feel we are unworthy? Okay. So let me talk of wanting to control. Anybody got an idea why we have the need to control?
Because then everything will be okay and we'll feel safe if everything works out the way we want it to.
Yes, but there's a small missing link in what you said. You are 100% spot on, but there's a missing link.
So you want to get it either right or wrong, and you're afraid of getting it wrong, and you want to get it right.
So remember, I want to control, because if I'm in charge, I could play the thing in such a way that nothing goes wrong. And
Yes.
I do that because if the circumstances are okay, then I'm okay. Now, let me just ask, can you imagine all the turmoil we go through to juggle all those things to maintain the circumstances to be okay? And it's absolutely impossible.
Mm.
Let me give an example. Let's say I am some masculine, attractive person, or man or woman, it doesn't matter. Let's say I'm a fabulous actor or an actress, or a sports person, it doesn't matter. So I was born with the talents of being an attractive man or an attractive woman, or an amazing sports person, or an amazing actor or actress, or musician. Being that musician isn't me, it's just something that I do. Being that attractive person isn't me, it's just something that my physical attributes are like. That is going to change. At some point, it's going to change. And you can see with attractive people and with actresses and actors and anybody who's popular, how they attempt to maintain that with plastic surgery, with all sorts of things. And it's not possible, because we are all going to get old, and we are all going to eventually have shriveled skin and all sorts of things that we didn't have when we were this attractive person, or actor or actress. So it's inevitable that it's going to change, and the plastic surgery is a way to stop it from happening to me. Linda, did I sort of from various sides attempt, and did my answer resonate with you?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else want to ask or call me out? Let's call me out, because who says I know all the answers? All I'm doing is I'm throwing some ideas around for you to draw parallels, and for you to be able to look at your life from a different perspective. Same life, different eyes.
So the next topic is blame doesn't set us free.
This was a difficult one for me to break down into seeing its constituents. So,
Okay.
so I mentioned previously, I think it was to Linda, the books that I read, that I thought this was another person who found the root cause of whatever we are going through as a species. And what I found, and where I could see, oh my goodness me, he got so close, but he got at the point of blame. Let me give an example. So let us say that I behave in a certain way, and it started at that point. And I would like to share a vivid example that happened to me when I was about this high. And it was parents and children and children's children. And all of us went to, and it was in the Strand there in the Cape Province, and we went out on the jetty to go and find, I don't exactly know what, but the insides of fish. Like fish eggs, I think it is called. And we all went to the strand, and on the jetty we walked out, and we just couldn't find. And I sort of turned back now. I think there were 10 or 12 people, all of my family. And I sort of turned back and I said, oh, I'm going to look at one more place. And of course, they were all in their own, whatever they were doing. And they didn't realize that I had left the group and there were so many children and aunts and uncles and so on. And here I scooted off and I found what we were looking for and I had it in my hands. And I looked back and my family had left, nowhere to be found and nowhere to be seen. And I'm literally this high. How old am I when I'm this high? 8, 9, 6, 5, 7, I don't know. Any case, and everybody had just left me there. And I, in my hand, had this stuff, whatever it was, and now I have to find them. And how do I find them? And you all have seen kids that are lost in shopping centers. They cry their eyes out. They are totally shattered, and Emmanuel was also totally shattered. Now, of course, did my parents and my family behave that way towards me because there was something wrong with me? No, it was 2 or 3 cars full of people, hierarchies of the family, and they just never realized they left me behind. And they scooted off, and here I was that high, looking, walking through the strand, up and down, up and down, up and down, trying to find where we had visited, because we were from Bellville. So I carried that with me for decades, the fact that they had just left me there. And I blamed them for their behavior towards me. And I carried that until I saw the blame. And I realized, no, they didn't behave like that towards me because there was something wrong with me. They just behaved, whatever way they behaved. But I took it on personally. So in that moment, of course, they solidified my belief about myself that I was unworthy, and I'm using just a collective word, that I was unworthy, because otherwise, why did they just leave me there? And the worst of it is, when they got home, they still didn't realize what I was missing. They only realized that when I got back, crying my heart out, that, oh, we forgot him, we didn't realize he wasn't here with us. So are you comfortable? Now, please remember, that happened to me this high, but that mark on my psyche stayed with me for many, many years, for decades, in fact. And it reiterated to me, but they would not have behaved like that if I was okay. So, of course, when we have the courage, Linde and Natasha and Jason, when we have the courage to see, the brutal honesty to see, it was just a simple dynamic that happened, and I made an interpretation. Did it serve me? No, none whatsoever. So that is at things like that story that I just told now, which was really what happened to me, is what happens to us, and we carry that. And we even, because of that, influence our own children or our partners or ourselves, because we blamed that for the reason that I am unworthy. Yes, Linde.
Thank you for sharing that, Emmanuel. I have a question. My question is, what is the difference between holding someone accountable versus blaming them?
No, holding them accountable is also blaming them. Please let me explain this. If I expect a certain behavior from another person, I have to ask why. Not of the person, of myself. Why do I want them to behave in a certain way? I am only accountable to myself and responsible for myself. Let me give an example.
Even if a person caused damage or you know, in your life, physically hurt you, emotionally, you still can't blame them.
Okay, let me shall I give another example of my personal life? Geez, I'm spilling
Sure.
my guts here tonight.
Sure, go for it.
So this time I was about so big. And please, everyone understand, I was obsessed with understanding me. Absolutely obsessed. So my father really used to beat me, and I'm now talking of physically, with a belt. And I used to get it everywhere, often. I also mentioned one day I'd like to share my my relationship with my mom. And maybe at some point I would get there as well. But let's take my father, seeing as what you said physically. So, of course, other physical things could happen to me, but I'm giving an example here. So my dad used to beat me and beat me and beat me until I was about so high when I grabbed the belt and I swore at him and I said, that's going to be the very last time that you did this. And he did really stop. He never, ever did that again. So now we have to look at that dynamic. Why did he do it? Was it because it was me? Or did he do it because of something in him? Okay. So I could now blame him for causing something with me, but that doesn't set me free, which means I always am owned by that blame. So I needed to see that dynamic as to, I also unraveled why he behaved that way, but that wasn't necessary. It's just because of my inquiring and wanting to understand. So I separated the two and I had a look at me. And I said my belief about myself was reiterated and re-emphasized by that behavior, because surely he wouldn't have done that to me if I was worthy. But he did it because of some lack in himself. And let's take it a step further. He also didn't know that he behaved that way, because if he had, so I would like to share with all of you, if we know why we behave the way we behave, we would stop. It's because we don't know. And as part of the message here with Peace Evolution is to create that awareness. So we understand, let's take the simplicity of blame. The moment there's blame, let's say I blame myself. Oh, I'm always late. I'm never going to do anything about it, which means I'm always going to be late. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when I recognize that in that I am keeping myself captive, I need to let go of that blame and be responsible and accountable. And if I make an appointment with somebody, I am there. And I don't make the appointment with person A and then person B comes along and that sounds more interesting and I change this. No, my appointment is my appointment. That doesn't mean I never reschedule. Of course, from time to time, something is going to happen of a nature that we would want to reschedule, but that would be few and far between. So we need to be accountable and responsible and also let go of the blame because it keeps us captive. And I would like to share something else. We're now in a topic that at some point we would go into very deeply, but I also realized in something similar with my mom that she was always around me, although she had passed many, many years ago. And the moment I saw this dynamic that I'm sharing now, as to what was the cause in me of our relationship with each other, she stopped being around me. So I profess that if we don't let go of the other person, they actually are still in our lives, locked by us, locking them in. Does that help, Linde, with your question?
Yes, absolutely.
So I would
So we
like,
actually have to understand it's about understanding the true origins of where this blaming behavior comes from.
yeah. Well, okay, why we want to blame. So let's have a look at why I want to blame. Because that solidifies my belief in myself, of myself. You see, that's why I am the way I am. So the moment I can unravel that, I become responsible for my actions and I can't say, oh, that's why. Now, this book that I was talking about, he had gone all the way up to blame. He didn't take that one step further. And it was quite an eye-opener for me because in reading that, it loosened up in me the understanding of blame.
what I'm hearing is that it does have a lot to do with your particular point of view. Because if your point of view is that you are rubbish, then you will do everything in your power, subconscious, to prove your point of view.
To disprove it.
To prove, because you want to either, well, it comes back to right or wrong. You want to either prove that you're right, I am rubbish, or you want to prove that you're wrong, I'm not rubbish. So
Okay, I
that
get your
point
point.
of view will determine, and that's kind of what's going to show up for you.
Okay, Dialina, you are on the edge. Could I just go a little bit further just so that that becomes crystal clear?
Yep.
Okay, so let's go slowly about this point. So first of all, we want to disprove that we are, to use the word that you were saying, which is now slightly different to mine. I want to disprove that I'm rubbish. But it's self-perpetuating the moment I use blame for why I am like that. It doesn't set me free. So let's go slowly about that. If I say I'm rubbish and the blame is XYZ, I now have a reason, a self-perpetuating reason why I can't do anything about it.
I'm hearing what I'm absorbing. Which just raises in me the question of, is it worth trying to find the cause?
Yes, yes, yes.
Because you might say it was John Smith on the 1st of July 1943 when he said I was a rubbish. And in that is either enlightenment or, like you say, blame. You're going to want to point a finger at John Smith.
Okay.
But what if you don't know? What if you don't know?
Okay, Dialina. So please remember a small thing. Is it okay if Dialina and I unravel this? Okay.
Absolutely.
Let's look at a small thing here, Dialina. A very important small thing is Emmanuel says that if there's 1% chance that what he discovered in himself could possibly be true for everybody, let's have a look at it. Okay. So the discovery is, if we use that discovery in your case and we look for the root cause, we can do one of two things. We can inspect everything and get to the bottom of it, and let us say that we come to blame, as an example. But I'm also saying we have hit a glass ceiling in our species' maturity. Okay, we still believe we have to have money as the prime reason for us to prove we're somebody. We also believe that if we could cast blame, then we could do nothing about it. Okay, so there are so many dynamics. So what I did, Emmanuel, is I went down these journeys to look at this, 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 to look at this. And one day I said, how many more examples do I need? Stop now already. So I said, well, if those are the symptoms, what's the cause? So, of course, I needed to break down the blame. I needed to break down several things. And in my example of playing on the farm, as a child, when I was building in the lounge with my toys a farm, and as a young adult, when I spoke with my school hostel roommate about a farm, and then physically going to buy a farm to realize it's got nothing to do with a farm. Okay. As I unraveled all of that, I saw that the root cause underneath all of this is my belief in myself that I'm unworthy. Now, for me to live freely and be the source of my life, like the sun is the source of itself, Table Mountain is the source of itself, the sea is the source of itself, a raindrop is a source of itself, a cob of corn is the source of itself, an oak, an acorn is the source of itself, and it grows into this beautiful tree. Then, do I still want to continue this hitting my head against the wall to try and figure out every single scenario that I could think of? Or could I say, wait, now, how do I get past the point? And that's when I came to wait. Just maybe I'm fully accountable to myself and fully responsible to myself, and let's stop blaming myself or anything else. And now I'm going to use a word that many, many people use and not, I think, really know what they mean, and just be myself. But fortunately, in all this unraveling, I saw all the other dynamics that I'm talking about. So I'm not sharing with you what I read in a book. I'm sharing with you blood, sweat, and tears. I cried sometimes for weeks without stopping, as I was figuring out what makes Emmanuel tick. Why is his life the way it is? And I didn't want it anymore. So did that help with the dynamic of the blame and the disproving? However, because we're at a glass ceiling, we don't know how to take the very next step.
Yes, I think for me, it comes down to, we've been given certain information by which to live our lives. And one of the things we've been told is that there is always someone outside of you that is responsible for everything going on in your life. So we've given away that power to the doctor, the mother, the father, the husband, the child, the dominee, whoever, the policeman, name it. Everyone out there is, and we're not taught from, and so it's like you say, that's kind of the current ceiling, but now a new ceiling, a new perspective, a new point of view, a new possibility is that, hello, it's not these people. could you consider for a moment that it could be you, that you could be the source of all this? It's not the dominee, it's not the mother, the father, John Smith in 1943. And through that, then I hear what you're saying. Then blame is silly. It's useless. It's a waste of time. It's irrelevant.
Yes. So let me take out my little soapbox and put it here, and now I'm going to get on my soapbox and tell something else. So, dear Lena, from what you're sensing from Emmanuel, in what he has experienced is, I'm nobody's puppet. I'm absolutely nobody's puppet. Then I don't want to live. Why should I be anybody's puppet? I am the source of me. And out of that source, I have now unraveled and set in motion what we are talking about here tonight. With a 1% chance that maybe what I discovered is also possible in your own lives. And I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying I found this. Who would like to also have some of this? And if that's the case, yes, then I've got a reason to live. But if I'm somebody's puppet, I don't want to live. So if you really look at what I'm saying is, if all these things that we hold dear to us and that we believe and that we feel it should be on all these perceptions, and that how we should be in a relationship and how we should treat others, then I have to ask this question. If we are not true to ourselves, how could we be anything to anybody? The difference is, in the one I'm taking to be worthy, in the other one, I'm giving just because I give. Like Table Mountain just gives. A tree just gives. The sun just gives. Think about the sun for a moment. If it's cold and you go and stand at some room in your house where you're pointing to the sun and that sun just touches you, can you imagine how responsible and accountable the sun is to play that balancing act, to just do it in a way that things in its world could thrive? Why should it be different for me? So I'd like to put something out to all of you. Each one of you is the center of your own universe. If my 1% hypothesis is true, Linda, you had a question.
Each one of us is the source of our life. And I just wanted you to elaborate a little bit on that and what that means when you say we are the source of our life.
I just need to start by saying, remember, I'm saying the hypothesis of 1%. I'm not saying it is like that for you. I'm saying, but if it's like that for me, just maybe it's like that for you. Now, if I look at myself as the source of my life, meaning my actions is, I'm the source of that. If I believe all these things about myself, I'm the source of that. Because remember, Linda, if somebody else's behavior caused that in me, then I'm a puppet again. But if they didn't give it to me, but I created it, I can uncreate that behavior that doesn't serve me. Otherwise, I'm stuffed and I'm just somebody's puppet, and I will not be anybody's puppet. Okay, having said that, so now I'm accountable for myself and I'm responsible for myself. And now I look in my heart, what is it that I really am? And then I use my talents and my skills and my temperament to manifest that. So I don't think I need to say anything but the principle. So let me just ask, assuming now that this 1% that I'm talking about, this hypothesis that we are the source of our lives and that we simply use our skills, our vehicle, our talents, our temperament, our ability to work on a computer, the ability to work on the internet, all of these things, that we simply deploy that in our quest to deliver whatever it is that we want to deliver. And if I may come back, Natasha, again to the youth, then I use all of those faculties that I've got and I give life from the source of mine into working with youth. Or whatever any one of you, but remember, we misinterpret the undercurrent of what we really are, and we don't actually understand our daydreams. Let's assume that Hitler was sitting here. Are you comfortable that his daydream to make a superior species was just something that he misunderstood in his undercurrent of his daydream? So if he was sitting here, would we give him the space to sit here? Emmanuel would say to him, Uncle Hitler, let's quickly have a look at this undercurrent of yours, of this superior species that you've been dreaming of. Linda, so I'm posing the question, is that underlying of his daydream anything different to what we are talking about here?
Yes, no, it's not different.
It's exactly the same, but he misunderstood it.
Hmm.
But in essence, look what he achieved as an individual. Had he read it correctly, had he understood it from his undercurrent, look at what he could have achieved.
You know that we will share the video with you. Please share it with others. And if you think someone else would find value in coming to these type of discussions, please spread the word.